who are some of the people that helped you along the way?
Well, I think everybody, whether they realize it or not, even the dickheads helped me, you know? If I was aware enough to realize that even somebody who's completely being saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, that it's an opportunity for you to realize that and kind of be grateful for the fact that you recognize that and you don't sort of take the bait and fall into a really dumb situation. So even the people that gave me a hard time helped me, you know? And there wasn't many of them, but the people that really helped me were a lot of strangers, man. Just a lot of kind people, you know? People I'd meet when I was out and about. And I developed a relationship with myself that was intimate. No, but you know, I think, honest to God, the biggest relationship I had was with my own self, my own relationship with myself in relation to the world. Because at the end of the day, that is your primary relationship, you know? And you kind of have to make friends with yourself. So that was really important. That helped me the most, was realizing that at 20 or 21 that I better get right with myself. Because that's the relationship that's going to be there, you know? Like I wrote in the book, you can have the perfect partner, the perfect, you know, family, the perfect job, the perfect car, the perfect everything. But when things are fucked up in your life, when all that is at rest, all your friends go home, your family goes home, your partner's asleep, it's still you with you. And you can't get away from that. You can try with drugs, alcohol, whatever. You can't get away from that. So that relationship is absolutely the most important relationship you're ever going to have. You know? Because if you fuck that one up, the rest are affected. But if that one's tight and good, and you have that sense of clarity within yourself, or even the sense of, not even clarity, because you can be unsure about a lot of things, but if you still feel like you have a center in you that you trust, and that feels like, it's like the eye of the hurricane, you know? It's the calm spot. If you have that center or that relationship with yourself, your source, not the monkeys, not that chimpy chatterbrain, that inside feeling of like your source, you know? Whatever you want to call that. I think if you're good with that, that's the best relationship you can ever have. But a lot of people help me, a lot of strangers. You know, you get into conversations with people and stuff, and just kind people, older people, especially old people, because they've been through stuff, and there's just something calming about being around someone who's experienced so much life, you know, love, loss, all the above. I think there's something powerful about being with someone who just owns their life in its entirety and doesn't judge it, you know, and they're just there.
Yeah.
And they don't, and they have nothing to prove, and you know they value they recognize that, you know, triumph and disaster are the same thing, wearing different coats. You know what I mean? Those people, man, they're awesome.
Did you find it was easier to talk to strangers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I could pour my heart out into a journal or talk to a stranger because there's no risk there of judgment. Even if a stranger judges you, who gives a shit? You're never going to see them again anyway, you know? But if you sit down with a family member or a friend and you say something that's like really important to you, or you tell them where you're at and they register a look of fear, even just a look of fear on their face, well, now I immediately took that as, fuck, now I'm ruining their day, or now I'm making it harder for them, you know? I didn't want to tell my parents how scared or messed up I really was.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to tell people that. Why would you do that to somebody, you know?
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Did you ever have any, or do you remember any, like, moments when you're talking to a stranger that really helped you? Maybe you got an awesome story out of it yourself?
Well, I was on a train once going to Nova Scotia between treatments when I was, you know, doing the cancer thing, and I met this black girl, and we were about the same age, but she was She was like a really heavy Christian. And we started talking, and it was interesting because I could tell, like, she kept wanting to talk about Jesus, you know? And I was like, you know, I'm not a religious person. I like ritual and everything, but I you know, I'm not a uber religious person. And she really wanted to talk about Jesus, you know? And she's like, you know, have you given your life to Jesus? And I'm like, you know, no. I mean, yeah, I'm raised in the church and everything, but and I'm not an active Christian or you know, card-carrying Christian of any sort. But I said to her, like, I'm enjoying talking to you, but I don't want to talk about, like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to kind of, I'll give my life to God, Jesus, right now, if we can just talk about other shit. And then she was like all happy. And then we prayed together. Like, I gave her what she wanted, essentially. It's like I guess she was keeping score or had a notepad or something. But then I started to ask her questions, you know, about her faith and what it meant to her and everything else. And I think that conversation was important because I realized that when I'm asking people questions, I felt better, you know, than telling them my story. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
When you're listening instead of talking.
Yeah, man. I think that was like the beginning of that, you know? And it's normal to want to tell your story and feel everything that comes with it, but she was interesting, you know? She was kind of I remember it was a bit of a turning point. And on that same trip, I was on a bus, and I was sitting there, and there was these two older people. They're probably in their late 60s. And we got into a conversation because it's Nova Scotia and everybody talks to everybody. And they asked where I was going because I was traveling alone and stuff. And I said I was going out to Sydney, and we got into a conversation, and I told them I was taking a break between treatment, and they were both cancer survivors. And they just had this sense of calm about them, you know? And they were just really they were really calm. And then in treatment, when I was first going through all the treatment and stuff, I'm still dealing with the mental health issues. I remember sitting next to this old boy, and he kind of is like this older guy, you know, probably in his 70s, and he's going through cancer treatment, and he was like a veteran, and he was just sitting there, and he looks at me, and we're waiting to get our blood drawn, and he's like, "You're waiting to see the vampires?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." And I just thought, you know what I mean? Like, the way he said it and everything, he had this kind of grin on his face, and I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You got cancer?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You'll be all right, man." You know? And it just had so much weight, you know? What he said had so much weight because I believed him, you know? So yeah, strangers, like, so many times I sat with strangers, and it was really helpful, you know? Homeless people, holy shit! When I was a doorman, I'd get in these conversations with homeless people, who obviously there's a lot of mental illness going on there, and alcoholism and addiction and everything else, and we'd have, like, I've been moved to tears, like, listening to their stories and hearing some of the wisdom and insight and all that shit. Like, it was powerful, you know? Because I don't think a lot of people choose to wake up and be a home. Like, nobody in grade 6 is like, "What do you want to be, Timmy?" "I want to be a firefighter." "What do you want to be, you know, Tommy?" "I want to be homeless," you know?